there.
St. Elsewhere returns next week at its regular time.
Why am I always the last to know?
Now stay tuned for a special NBC Reports Beyond the Missile Crisis.
A class of 12-year-olds at the Konrad Adenauer School in Bonn, capital of West Germany. They come from upper-middle-class families, generally conservative. They are making doves in different colors and different sizes. With childlike innocence, they are reflecting a national mood of anxiety, what the Germans call Angst. In recent months, hundreds of thousands of Germans, on one occasion last October 22nd, as many as 1 million, have demonstrated against the deployment of American Pershing II and cruise missiles. In Bonn, Berlin, Hamburg, Stuttgart, young and old, united by a common fear of war on the near horizon. They are, for the most part, nonviolent, imbued with an almost Gandhi-like pacifism, trapped by geography on the front line of the East-West struggle, in recent months raised to a new level of danger. A clear majority of the West German people oppose the missile deployments and disapprove of President Reagan's policy.
He gave the impression he wants to seek for superiority. He seems to think that it's possible in a war to get a victory, and this would be at our expense. We would not even witness if his thinking is true, because this decision would be taken after our existence.
You mean after you have been obliterated?
Of course.
The joke is that you don't have to be German to fear obliteration. But it helps. Imagine for a moment that you are the son of Field Marshal Erwin Rommel of World War II fame, and you're asked to explain why so many Germans now distrust military power.
We cannot deny in Germany that, of course, the German army in the last war helped Hitler to remain powerful and to remain in the government. And therefore, many people say the army is not good at all. And fighting is not good at being a soldier is not good at all. Being and of course menacing with weapons is not good at all. We need a complete change.
A complete change, but to what? In West Germany today, there are no easy answers. Instead, there is a wrenching soul-searching, a groping for a new national identity at a time when the post-war balance of nuclear power has shifted, and not to the West's advantage.
In my opinion, all these years the nuclear war was logically impossible. It is still now, thank God, improbable, because I think neither the leaders in the United States nor in Russia are madmen of Hitler's ilk. But it's no longer logically impossible.
Here in Germany, in the divided heart of Europe, the national consensus on foreign policy has collapsed. Along with it, the comfortable assumption we've lived with for many years that West Germany would forever be content to be part of the West and to live under the U.S. nuclear umbrella. But because West Germany is the linchpin of the NATO alliance in Europe, when it has problems, then so too has the alliance, and so too the United States. A new Germany is emerging, with allegiances and priorities that are still unclear. What is clear is that the security of the United States is directly affected by this plunge into the unknown.
NBC News presents Beyond the Missile Crisis, reported by Marvin Kell.
Look who's discovered Sanka ground coffee. Ground coffee lover Mike Johnson.
Tastes great.
Ground coffee lover Virginia Buckland.
That's good.
Enjoy Sanka brand decaffeinated coffee, ground roasted, for a rich, fresh brewed, delicious cup of coffee. So take it from real ground coffee lovers like John Russ Kelly.
That's good.
For fresh brewed flavor, discover Sanka ground coffee for yourself.
Are you missing something in your treatment of sinus?
Introducing new maximum strength Sinutab with maximum decongestant to let you breathe again. Maximum antihistamine to dry up runny nose, watery eyes. Maximum non-aspirin pain reliever for throbbing headache. New maximum strength Sinutab. You can't buy a stronger, more complete sinus remedy without a prescription. New maximum strength Sinutab. It's the most you can do for your sinuses.
In these days of the missile anguish, West Germany has become one large Hyde Park. This is Munsterplatz in Bonn. As good a place as any on a Saturday afternoon for the kind of obsessive debate about nuclear strategy that has been whipping through the whole country.
Egal was passiert, wenn die Raketen aufgestellt werden, dann wird die Gegenseite sagen, so jetzt sind wir unterlegen und sie wird wieder aufrüsten. Das heißt, immer nur gegen Amerika, immer gegen Amerika. Es wird hier immer argumentiert, ja, dass man Pershing II und Potenzial aufstellen muss, weil die andere Seite SS-20 hat. Ja, und ich versuche deutlich zu machen, dass das miteinander nichts zu tun hat.
Wenn diese Chaoten hier stehen und immer nur gegen die bösen Amerikaner, aber die Sowjets in den Himmel heben.
And what in fact is this Pershing II missile that has so polarized German society? It would take a military expert to distinguish the new Pershing II from the old Pershing I, which has been a familiar, non-threatening sight in some German towns since 1963. But there is one critical difference. The Pershing I could not hit the Soviet Union. The Pershing II can, within 7 minutes after launch. Unless the U.S. and the Soviet Union agree to control these weapons, their latest effort in Geneva failed last month, 108 Pershing IIs will be based in West Germany by 1986. The first 9 are already operational at the U.S. missile base at Bottlangen. In addition, 464 slower cruise missiles, also capable of reaching the Soviet Union, are being deployed in 5 allied countries in Western Europe. The first 32 have already reached Italy and Great Britain. All this a demonstration of Western resolve in the face of 360 Soviet SS-20 missiles, which are already operational, each with 3 warheads, making every important political or military facility in Western Europe a potential target. In this world of force counterforce escalating with dizzying speed, the leaders of the peace movement tend to ignore the fact that by deploying these new missiles, the West is reacting to an existing Soviet challenge.
As far as the Pershing are concerned, this is a new quality of weapon. It's a quality that can hit the C3 structure, command, communication, control, of a world power, that is the Soviet Union, with practically no warning time. And so this is a weapon that is bound to attract a Soviet strike in order to prevent this strike. And so the Germans are opposed to this kind of weapon which attracts war and does not give security.
West Germany's defense minister, Manfred Wörner, favors deployment because he fears the consequences of political blackmail.
I do not think that the Russians are crazy enough to wage a war. It's the time of crisis where I am interested in. And if you perceive a situation where the other side has a clear military superiority in an essential field, which intermediate range nuclear weapons would be, the population, the government of this state would behave as if a war had happened. That means would tend to give way to political pressure. That's the main concern I have.
The defense minister's political opponents, the Social Democrats, worry about a loss of national independence. The U.S. missiles are under U.S. control.
If you decide to use nuclear weapons, you decide upon your existence. We cannot. The American president might decide upon our existence. We have no saying in this. So to a certain degree we are hostages we are friends, we are partners, we are all these things together.
The partnership is NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. It was formed in 1949 as a military shield against the Soviet Union when the Cold War was just a child. Its primary responsibility is the defense of the Central Front, the 500-mile twilight zone between the two Germanys, between East and West, what Winston Churchill many years ago called the Iron Curtain. The armies of 5 nations guard the western side of the border: the U.S., West Germany, Great Britain, Belgium, and Holland. The United States and West Germany are clearly the senior partners. More than 300,000 American troops are based in West Germany, a tripwire guaranteeing U.S. retaliation in the event of a Soviet attack. The U.S. Army is the umbilical cord binding the United States to Europe's defense. The West German Army, the Bundeswehr, is 500,000 men strong, the biggest in NATO, with 10 heavy divisions backed by a vigorous, well-trained reserve. It is absolutely crucial to the defense of NATO. Indeed, it is the key. Without West Germany, could NATO defend itself?
I don't see any way. You see, the central region is so important to our defense of Western Europe. Not that the southern region and northern region aren't important too, but the real keystone to that defense lies in the central region. And within that area, West Germany and its forces, they're key to our capability to deter or to defend.
That is why the neutralist tremors in the current missile debate are so important. They raise a question about the strength of West Germany's continuing commitment to the alliance.
Why should we care for the Western alliance as such? It's not no value in itself. The alliance is no value in itself. If the alliance would guarantee, in perspective terms, would guarantee peace, I would be, and that movement would be for the Western alliance. We have to be against the Western alliance as an alliance because it has brought us into this deadly confrontation.
Some German strategists, wedded to the West, put the best face on a growing problem. Karl Kaiser is director of the German Society for Foreign Affairs.
If you would ask an American whether he likes weapons to be stationed in the neighborhood of a few hundred kilometers or miles, I'm sure you would get a majority of Americans saying he doesn't like it. And that's what we're having at the moment. But what must not be lost out of sight is that the overall consensus that you need nuclear deterrence, that you need strong ties within the alliance, that still exists and has vast majorities, not just 60%, but you're talking about 80, 85, 90%.
Yes, in the abstract, but in the real world of mounting east-west tension with mushrooming missile deployments, opposition to the missiles has begun to erode West German support for the NATO alliance.
If the missiles will be deployed, I'm sure that neutralism and anti-Americanism will grow in Germany. By now we have a majority of the population only against the deployment of the missiles. Most of the people want to stay in the NATO, but they don't want these missiles because they don't believe anymore that these missiles might serve their security. But if our government in Germany, together with the American administration, will deploy these missiles against the resistance of the peace movement and against the political will of the population, then more and more people will have their doubts about the NATO security policy.
Recent public opinion polls suggest that Berthold, a law student at the University of Bonn, has his finger on the popular pulse. For example, when asked whether West Germany should remain a member of NATO, 72% of the people polled said yes. But when presented with this choice, reject the missiles and get out of NATO, or accept the missiles and stay in, only 46% supported the missiles and the alliance. 32%, 1 out of every 3 Germans, were undecided, and 22% favored West Germany's pullout from NATO. This dramatic shift in public opinion has had a shattering effect on party politics. The post-war consensus on foreign policy has collapsed. Last month, the Social Democratic Party proclaimed its formal opposition to the missile deployment, ignoring the irony that it was Social Democratic Chancellor Helmut Schmidt who, in 1977, first proposed a Western military response to the SS-20. Now, out of power, the Social Democrats have swung sharply to the left, trying to catch up with their own political constituency, rank-and-file members in cities and small towns who have opposed the missiles almost from the beginning. If you happen to be driving through North Germany, close to the line dividing this country, you may very well miss this small village of Klein-Pampow. It's so small, it's not on most maps. It doesn't have its own marketplace, not even its own church. But Klein-Pampow is something special. It recently filed a lawsuit against the West German government, questioning the constitutionality of the missile deployment. The case may end up in the Supreme Court. And like about 80 other communities in this country, Klein-Pampow recently proclaimed to the entire world that it is a nuclear-free zone. Klein-Pampow is a good example of the mouse that roared. Recently, its social hall, built along clean Scandinavian lines, was the setting for a peace festival. Music from a 3-piece neighborhood ensemble, and all the beer you could drink. There was a lot of light chatter, but a lot of talk, too, about missiles war and how to avoid both.
Die USA und die UdSSR wollen keinen Krieg.
The US and the Soviet Union don't want war. But they are superpowers, and if war should break out, they have to think of winning it. We Europeans can only think of the first step. We don't want war, because if war should come, we'll be dead.
Denn wenn kommt, sind wir tot.
They're playing the local version of a European smash hit. It's called Visit Klein-Pampow, while it's still standing.
A cleansing bar that can moisturize rather than dry your skin out? I think that's terrific. I love Dove.
We asked women across America to give up their ordinary soap and take the Dove 7-day test.
You know the way how silk feels smooth and good? Well, that's the way Dove makes my face feel.
Dove is 1/4 moisturizing cream. It can give you softer, smoother skin in 7 days.
After using Dove for 7 days, my face is very soft and very supple.
For softer, smoother skin, switch to Dove.
I'm just very, very impressed with Dove.
Mom, I fixed the car.
You did?
I helped.
Oh, okay, you guys. Sweatshirt's in there.
A-L-L.
Uh-huh. A-L-L will take care of you two grease monkeys.
All has concentrated cleaning power to get out even grease stains and rubbed-in dirt, so everything comes out clean.
You fixed my sweatshirt.
Well, I had help, too.
A-L-L?
Get it A-L-L Clean with the concentrated cleaning power of Concentrated All.
Get a feel for cotton. The way it always feels just right. The way it's cool to your touch. The way it practically takes care of itself. Once you get a feel for cotton, you won't feel like anything else. Look for the cotton seal on the Comfort Kale 200 sheets by Canon. Their natural blend for more cotton and easy care.
I want you to meet something for your arthritis pain and your aspirin-sensitive stomach. Maximum Strength Ecotrin, safety-coated aspirin. Its orange safety coating works so well. Millions of you can take even Maximum Strength aspirin without all aspirin stomach upset. It's not the aspirin substitute. It's aspirin for minor pain relief. Safety-coated to protect your stomach. Now, if your doctor says aspirin, take it. But make it Maximum Strength Ecotrin. It's safety-coated. It's orange.
peace movement now comes in all shapes and sizes and sounds. A mock theater performing in Cologne, West Germany. A barbed parody on U.S. nuclear policy in the old-fashioned tradition of the German cabaret.
Duck and cover. Duck and cover.
Es war eine Schildkröte, die hieß Paul, und Paul die Schildkröte.
Tongue-in-cheek, the actors, all professionals, taking a little time off for political proselytizing, cite some U.S. government advice to children.
Duck and cover. Duck and cover.
At least here, there's a more in sorrow than anger quality to this criticism, as though a friend has gone astray. These days, the peace movement is no longer the monopoly of the political fringes lacking the proper respectability. Now it has come to dominate the mainstream of German society. Jürgen Flimm is the talented and frightened director of the Cologne Playhouse.
The movement is having fear about that what's going on now. There are some people, very old men in Moscow, very old men sitting there and doing something. There are some people in Washington, some guys from Texas or from California, and doing something. And we don't know exactly what's going on. It's like looking through a window. You look through a window and you see them sitting there, and you knock at the window and they don't hear you. They are talking and you don't hear them talking. You only see, like that, old man there and some guys there.
For Flimm and others, there is a haunting historical parallel.
Perhaps in 50 years I can tell my children, I tried to knock. And I have a little wound here, but I tried to knock. I'm 33, nobody knocked. Or it was not enough people who knocked.
Germans gathering for a peace service near Cologne. Some painfully aware that during the Nazi years, very few of their religious leaders bothered to knock. There were, of course, individual exceptions, but for the most part, German clergymen turned a blind eye toward the horrors of Hitlerism. In particular, the Protestant churches stuck to their traditional role of submission to the will of the state. Now, conscience, perhaps a sense of unfulfilled responsibility, seemed to be driving German clergymen towards a new social outlook, a new involvement tying the pulpit to the street. Their purple neckerchiefs, a symbol of peace. In West Berlin, Helmut Goldwitzer, a Protestant minister, is one of those exceptions. Fearlessly anti-establishment then as now, he explains the change.
A small part of the Protestant church in Germany opposed Hitler and took a critical position against the state. But later there was a feeling of guilt that not enough had been done at the time. They don't want to feel guilty again.
Young Germans have been drawn into the new social crusade of the church, their way of returning to the faith. For Siegfried Vergils, a pastor in Bonn, the peace movement is a religious activity. In his words, a way of being Christ.
I just can't talk and talk and talk of God's peace and then think that this peace of God doesn't have anything to do with peace in the world. What is written in the Bible is something that must be valid for me today, in our political situation, or it isn't valid at all.
Vergils preaches in the Lucas Church. Like many others throughout Germany, a place for soul-searching talks among young and old about ethics, politics, and war. Increasingly, what one hears is criticism of the United States, a friend. And with the criticism comes a certain estrangement.
The time in Europe or in Germany where everything coming from America is good, this time is over. And I think we are adult. And to be adult is meaning we are friends, American and German, but if my friend makes a great mistake, I am forced to say that he makes a mistake.
Another broad-based feeling that the Russian leaders, having suffered war, may be more careful than their American counterparts about avoiding another.
The older generation of Russian politicians has personally experienced war, but American politicians have never experienced war in their own country. This is a fundamental difference in experience, that the older generation in Russia knows what war in one's own country is really like. So, at the moment, I worry more about the policy of the Reagan administration than I do about the policy of the Kremlin.
And on the question of further missile deployments, enough.
We have enough of that stuff, you know. We don't want more. And I think the more we have, the more is the, shall I say, chance that war comes by mistake. We don't want that. You can't make peace with each other with lots and lots of more weapons. We must talk to the other one and tell him, we don't want to threat you, please, you don't want to threat us. What is the sense of destroying Europe? I can't see that.
The bookstores reflect this national anguish. Germans are obsessed by books suggesting the world is hanging by a thin thread. A runaway bestseller is called Peace is Possible. Interspersed with the teachings of Christ, it combines religion with politics, striking a popular chord in modern-day Germany. It is the work of Franz Alt, a conservative Catholic, who is a TV star and anchorman, usually adept at concealing his personal views.
Guten Abend, liebe Zuschauer.
In a storm of controversy, Alt was fired and later rehired for denouncing the missile deployment, first on the air, then in his book.
Wenn die goldene Regel der Bergpredigt heißt,
the golden rule of the Sermon on the Mount is, do unto others as you would have others do unto you. What that means for our armaments discussion is, if you want the others to scrap their SS-20s, then you can't put up Pershings yourself.
The literary conscience of the country is Heinrich Böll, the Nobel Prize winner. He's enjoying a remarkable resurgence, partly because of his emotional involvement with the peace movement.
I'm personally frightened about street demonstration. My experience is that of the Nazi time, where the street was a place of terror. But these young people I met 2 years ago in Bonn with a big demonstration, they encouraged me that there is a new young Germany, a new generation, I must say. I saw it in the faces, I saw it, I felt it talking with them, which is not nationalistic. That's difficult for a foreigner to understand. That's not nationalistic, but German.
Helping to define this new German nationalism are the Greens. Anti-missile, anti-NATO, anti-war. The anti-establishment sons and daughters of the middle class who have formed a political party and in the last election here won enough seats to be represented in the Bundestag, meaning in practical terms that the peace movement has come of age. It has a voice and a vote in the national parliament.
The Greens are serious, skilled politicians, as capable as any American candidate of playing to the cameras. Superficially, at least, they resemble the American counterculture of the 1960s, anxious about pollution, nuclear power, and the kind of materialism that destroys the soul. They are romantics who yearn for the pastoral tranquility they associate with the old days. They want to get off the 20th century express. But because they are Germans, aware of their country's unique responsibility for 2 world wars and 1 Holocaust in recent memory, they are also marked by a special revulsion against violence of any kind. During the massive October demonstrations, one group of Greens peacefully blockaded German army headquarters in Cologne. They had preached nonviolence, now they practiced it. They refused to be provoked, even though they believed, or so they said, that World War III was being planned by the bureaucrats who watched from the windows. But it seemed that it was World War II that many demonstrators could not forget.
I think we will never get rid of this heritage. It's too brutal and incomprehensible.
In this country, a lot of books came out and movies were shown over the past few years that try to come to terms with fascism, but it remains incomprehensible. I think that's the reason for resistance against everything that has to do with mass murder and murder machinery.
Many of the young Greens have adopted India's Gandhi as their political high priest. His teachings, now their dogma.
Since we want a non-violent society, we believe we can only reach that goal through non-violent means. But the only thing possible for us here in Germany is non-violent resistance. To show by the way we make politics what we want.
And it is in this attitude that the seeds of German neutralism have now been planted.
Twice in this century, a war started from our territory. What is being done at the moment could mean the possibility of that happening a third time. After the war, our parents swore, never again war, never again weapons. That's very clear. I think especially we Germans must refrain from making any military threat against anyone. And that's why I think, with a history like ours, the only possibility is neutrality.
Because now is when you need it most. Sears announces the big automotive sale. Save $15 on Sears 55 battery. Just $49.99 with trade-in. 10W40 oils on sale. Now only 79 cents. This heavy-duty battery charger, $50 off. And you'll get the traction you need with Weather Handler all-season radials. A set of 4 as low as $99. Confidence installed, day and night.
There's more for your life at Sears.
If you're taking more pills than you'd like for minor arthritis pain, here's a rub which might just replace pills. Aspercreme. Aspercreme relieves arthritis pain because it contains salicin, a strong non-aspirin pain reliever. Aspercreme concentrates relief right where you hurt, penetrating, long-lasting relief without the side effects pills may cause, and there's no odor. Aspercreme, strong, effective relief without pills. Remarkable.
Beyond the Missile Crisis will return.
Jack's got a grudge against Nurse Terry, but little does he know that she's the #1 choice for the new roommate. Can Jack get Terry out of his life? Watch Three's Company tonight at 10:30.
From London, Beirut, Moscow, Chicago, Cairo, Tokyo, wherever, whenever news is happening, you know it because you see it on CNN Headline News. With CNN Headline News, you get proven news know-how. That means news happening anywhere in the world is as close, as current, as clear as if it happened next door. Keep up with CNN Headline News and keep up with the world.
All night, 7 nights a week. CNN News, here on Channel 4.
From Channel 4, this is a news update. Here is Jim Travis.
Good evening. State legislators told the governor's staff today that they do not want a narrowly limited special session call on education next month. They want something broader. Near Clinton, a court-ordered auction of farm equipment, a donkey, and 2 Peruvian llamas brought in $93,000 toward Jake Butcher's debts totaling more than $32 million. And driving in some areas of the mid-state remains hazardous due to refreezing tonight. Wind chill factors tonight will be near 0 due to brisk winds. Here at Channel 4, it is 24 degrees. We'll have more news coming up on the scene at 10.
Berlin, once the capital, now the tormented soul of Germany, split like the country. One part pledged to the west, the other locked into the east. This city of northern grayness, which once sparkled with Prussian pride, has now been reduced to a pawn in the superpower game. It lies 110 miles inside East Germany, vulnerable, surrounded by hostile forces, and shabby at the edges. The people, sensitive to every move on the chessboard, are hostages to the outcome of the East-West struggle. Berliners do not have to be told, they know it instinctively, that the recent chill in superpower relations, symbolized by the new missile escalation, will change their lives yet again, and in their view, not for the better. The biggest change in the history of post-war Berlin occurred on August 13th, 1961, when the Russians built a wall through the city in a desperate attempt to stop the flight of discontented Germans from the east. Over the years, the wall expanded from primitive barbed wire to a sophisticated complex of watchtowers and roadblocks, and it has crippled the life of Berlin. Tilly Garlip is a West Berliner who has 4 sisters and brothers in the east.
I think this was the biggest shock in my life, because you must know I have my family the other side. We could see each other every Saturday and Sunday. Then overnight this wall was erected, and I mean this situation now for 22 years. And I put the same question every day, why? Why can my family not come to me and see me, even for a visit, for a few hours, for one day? I don't ask that they move here forever.
For 10 years, there was practically no contact between East and West Germans. Then, in the early 1970s, during a thaw in relations between Moscow and Washington, a crack in the wall opened, and the two Germanys took advantage of this new mood in international affairs. It was called détente by some, Ostpolitik by others. Not important. What was important was that the two Germanys formally recognized each other. Diplomats were exchanged, and a system was set up allowing a limited number of East and West Germans to visit one another across this line.
Oberbaumbrücke is a bridge over the River Spree, one of the few ways Berliners from the West can walk into the East when visiting relatives. Oberbaumbrücke is one of the rewards of détente. For very good human reasons, a policy still cherished by the Germans, though it's been discarded by the Americans. The visits are a kind of lifeline thrown across the wall. West Germans are allowed to visit relatives 30 days a year. No restrictions on age. But East Germans cannot visit the West unless they are pensioners. A woman over 60, a man over 65. The state's way of ridding itself of what's considered socially useless citizens. To the state, but not to the relatives. A West Berliner waits on an observation deck in a light rain for over an hour. Patience is saintly in Berlin. Finally, her brother emerges to a warm reunion. The human cost of living in a divided city and a divided country is very high. Family life is unnatural. Politics a constant preoccupation. Berliners know that for them, the new missiles mean only trouble. If the deterioration in East-West relations continues, family contacts across the wall may be scaled down, even cut off.
Das ist also das Zentrum Berlins, der Zoo, alles hat hier der Zoo.
Like many West Berliners, Tilly Garlip, a tour guide, has a clear-minded appreciation of Soviet power and the importance of détente.
As long as we have the relatives in East Germany, we need a time. There's no other solution. Because if the Russians want, they can close the border. It's finished out. As long as we have the families the other side, there's no other solution than détente.
There are unusual links. For example, in the East, the Germans, most of them, get their news from the West. From this television studio in West Berlin, each morning at 10, a special program is beamed containing the highlights of what appeared on West German TV the night before. In effect, an uncensored look at Western life. In part for this reason, a budding peace movement is now developing in East Germany. But there, the police generally take a no-nonsense approach to the demonstrators. This anti-missile, anti-war attitude is a unifying factor in German life. As contacts increase and experiences are shared, it sometimes seems as if the distant dream of the two Germanys again becoming one is closer to reality. Though in time, this may all prove to be an illusion.
The present state of affairs is a modus vivendi. It's the way to deal with it for probably decades to come. But it also has another meaning. you will have a consensus in this country between right and left, the old and the new government, that the Germans should try to make their contribution to keep things reasonably under control, to keep tensions down in this part, and that might contribute generally to keeping tensions down in Europe. And needless to say, the West Germans look very much at the relationship with East Germany in that sense.
That's one way of defining détente, once the monopoly of the Social Democrats, now warmly embraced by the conservative Christian Democrats, such as Richard von Weizsäcker, the Protestant mayor of West Berlin. He believes détente must go far beyond the issue of family visits.
I go very often to East Berlin and to East Germany. I talk to very many people over there. I have rather close relations, for instance, with the Protestant churches in East Germany. And I very clearly and deeply feel a responsibility for their future. They are Germans. It is not particularly their fault that they are on the other side, if I may say so, on the wrong side of the wall. They don't want us to forget them. They want us to use our influence, our financial and economic and political power in order to contribute at least as much as we can to alleviate their fate. It is not an unfair use of our freedom if we see to it that our policy does not make the existing wall even higher.
In fact, through the use of their economic freedom, the West Germans are trying to lower the wall. A lively, though modest, trade has developed between the two Germanys, with the western part working out some special tax breaks for the East. For example, this trade is tariff-free. Once East German products get into the West, some enjoy a competitive advantage in the European economic community. East German cargo ships regularly use the giant West German port of Hamburg, unloading products with no custom charges for distribution throughout the West. Although trade is still modest, financial deals are getting bigger and bigger, but they go in only one direction. Last June, for instance, a group of West German banks extended a 1 billion mark credit to East Germany, nearly $400 million to a country already deep in foreign debt. The West German government guaranteed the loan after none other than Franz Josef Strauss, a committed Cold Warrior, negotiated the terms with Erich Honecker, the Communist Party boss of East Germany. The unimaginable now edges towards the routine. Strauss now believes that military power, once his middle name, can never subdue the Soviet Empire. The only reliable path, he thinks, is diplomacy and détente.
To change the situation in Europe cannot be done by war, can also not be done by a revolution. Remember Berlin, Hungary, Prague. Many, many hopes were stimulated at that time. And what could the West do without risking war? Nothing. I have a very good memory, and I have all those bitterly disappointing remembrances in my head.
The uniqueness of Berlin sensitizes the foreigner to a major West German problem: how to pursue two contradictory foreign policies at the same time. One policy is détente, which in a natural way satisfies West Germany's emotional and economic needs. The other policy is called confrontation, which by accommodating NATO and the United States seems to be robbing West Germany of the benefits of détente. Clearly, it becomes more difficult with each passing day of the missile crisis to reconcile both policies. And if the older generation now running West Germany cannot cope with this historic responsibility, then the younger generation, for better or worse, seems ready to give it a try.
What would you do with $250,000?
Winter in Hawaii.
A mink coat.
A red
convertible. It's here. Reader's Digest Cold Hard Cash Sweepstakes. Watch your mail.
Reader's Digest gives it all away right away. The quicker you enter, the more you could win.
Grand prize, a cool $250,000. Over 40,000 other cash prizes.
But you're never going to win if you don't enter.
A week in Paris. Our second home. Reader's Digest Cold Hard Cash Sweepstakes. Watch your mail. You can't win if you don't enter.
The Motor Trend Car of the Year Award. The winner, Renault Alliance. And AMC Jeep Renault is celebrating with factory incentives to dealers. Now may be the best time to buy an Alliance or an all-new Encore. Plus factory-to-dealer incentives of up to $1,000 on Fuego Turbo. Get the buy of the year now through January 7th. And be sure to check out Jeep CJ and the all-new Jeep Cherokee. See your local AMC Jeep Renault dealer today.
Not long ago, at his home in France, wine expert Christopher Stevens invited friends to guess the price of a special American Burgundy.
Très bon. Qu'en pensez-vous?
65. They guessed between $8 and $10.
70.
How much was the wine from America? You already know.
14 francs.
Because it's the same red wine you're probably drinking now.
14 francs.
The Hardy Burgundy of Ernest and Julio Gallo.
C'est incroyable.
From America's premier vintners. All the best.
Saturday, one step closer to Judgment Day in the AFC. Cinderella Seattle must face Shula and his Dolphins. Saturday on NBC. Monday, the Fighting Illini of Illinois battle the Pac-10 champions, the Bruins of UCLA. It's the granddaddy of them all, the Rose Bowl. Monday. Sunday, Clint Eastwood has a sudden impact on the new year.
I've got work to do.
And it'll make Dirty Harry's day in The Enforcers Sunday.
For many West Germans, their current disillusionment with American policy has its roots in the blood and brutality of the 1968 student revolution. Violence is part of the German university tradition, but it seemed to reach new heights of ferocity in 1968. Touched by a sudden rush of guilt, the children of post-war Germany revolted against the materialism and smugness of their parents, the injustices of their university system, which hadn't changed in decades, but most of all, against the war in Vietnam. In their eyes, a wicked, immoral war conducted by a country they had uncritically considered a friend. Michael Koritz is a teacher at the Martin Buber High School in West Berlin. Born into post-Hitler Germany, he learned from his parents that he owed a debt to America.
I was really grateful for the Americans having won the war. So I didn't have to grow up under circumstances like my father did. And I think that was the main reason for me to love America.
Koritz is a member of what the experts call the successor generation. For a number of reasons, he has now broken with his father's generous vision of America. It seemed that during Vietnam, one illusion about America died and another was born, both exaggerated by emotion turned sour.
When I saw what they were doing over there, I really couldn't believe it in the beginning. Because I just had the idea of America trying to bring progress and freedom and liberty and, things like that. And when I saw that they brought nothing but death and pain and anger and things like that, I can't say that I hated America, but I hated a very specific aspect of America.
Harold Dorn, a student representing what might be called the next successor generation, reflects his teacher's attitude toward the United States.
When people say today that we are obliged to the Americans and we have to support the NATO missile decision because we must be thankful to the Americans, I must say that I don't think we have to be thankful for anything. I regard the NATO missile decision as a mistake the Americans made. And I think when we consider the facts, we are obliged to just say no. We have an alliance with the Americans, and when I see what they are doing today in Nicaragua and what they did in Vietnam, then I am ashamed of them.
A tom-tom demonstration outside of an American barracks in West Berlin. It is clear many of these Germans distrust American policy. What is not clear is why they show such tolerance of Soviet policy. One explanation offered by the experts is that they learned their politics during the era of détente, when the Soviet Union was seen as a somewhat benign power. For them, that image of Russia still continues. This view was encouraged by some of West Germany's most respected professors. For example, Eckhard Krippendorf, in 1968 a leader of the student revolt, today a peace activist and director of the highly prestigious Kennedy Institute at the Free University of Berlin.
The Soviet Union is certainly on all levels, for all practical purposes, extremely cautious, careful, and one of the most conservative powers that we have today in the world. We observe this here in Berlin even, or in Germany all the time, that they are scared stiff.
For Krippendorf, a theoretical Marxist, the Soviet Union is a failed revolution. Still, his perception of the Soviet challenge is totally different from President Reagan's.
Now you can still, which I do, dislike Soviet policy, internal and external, but it's not an aggressive power that only waits to expand its sphere of influence by way of force.
The brawling students of the 60s are the shapers of public opinion today. They are the lawyers, journalists, politicians of West Germany, and they are the teachers too. All university trained. 15 years ago, there were about 300,000 Germans at universities. Now there are more than 1,300,000. And from professor to student, the tendency seems to be to give the Russians the benefit of the doubt.
I don't like the Soviet Union very much, but still I don't think that the Soviet Union is a power which might start a war in Europe. What Americans have to consider is that Germany has marched into the Soviet Union twice in this century. And I think that the Russians will never forget this. And therefore, they have a great need to feel secure.
In West Germany, no less than in the United States, attitudes are formed in the classroom. Andreas Loska is a 36-year-old economics teacher at the Konrad Adenauer High School in Bonn. West Germany, he tells his senior class, spends 40 billion marks a year on defense, about $16 billion. Dismissing the Soviet challenge, he asks, aren't there really better ways of spending the money? For example,
to get the 40,000 unemployed people off the street who would like teaching jobs but can't get them, and for whom welfare now has to be paid. Why isn't that done?
In the classrooms up until recent years, few studied the Hitler period. That has now changed. As for the post-war period, very little is taught or known, and what is, seems to have an anti-American slant. Question, what was the Marshall Plan, which, after all, helped rebuild West Germany?
I don't know exactly. It was simply, well, I don't know. It was financial aid or something like that. Marshall said we would become allies of the USSR, so that's why they gave us the money. So we wouldn't team up with the Russians, but with the Americans.
So ist es doch.
Many schools celebrate the concept of peace, in part because they are terrified by the possibility of war. A bleak vision that has become a national obsession. Embracing the teacher, the student, and the church. At this ceremony, typical of many others spanning this divided nation, students project their sense of a nuclear attack.
It will be a smashing thrust followed by a hurricane-like storm. In the center of Bonn, people will suffer third-degree burns. Without immediate medical help, they will die. After the explosion, Bonn will be in ruins and ashes. Half the population will be dead or won't have a chance to survive. But the survivors will envy the dead.
A Catholic priest shares his private premonition with the students.
That's what the world will look like. Destroyed, naked, cold. And in this ice-cold world there is a nest of eggs. And high above this nest, the dove of peace is flying. The dove who is the only survivor.
In West Germany these days, the hymns of the church have become the anthems of the peace movement. They are the songs of the dove, the songs of peace.
There are, of course, many Germans who disagree with the peace movement, who deep down distrust it. But even they admit, however reluctantly, that it is now national in scope, a lightning rod for many diverse groups trying to redefine Germany's traditional role as a kind of loose cannon between East and West. Twice in this century, a united Germany started wars in Europe. Twice, the United States and its allies had to finish them. Now, with Germany divided and unpredictable and East-West tensions high, U.S. security interests are again on the line. Reagan administration officials say, for the record, that the initial missile deployment has been a great success for the West, a defeat for the Russians. Privately, many admit that the political costs, especially in West Germany, have been far too high for the presumed military gains. Beyond the missile crisis is the question of the future of Germany and the fate of the Atlantic Alliance on which American security depends. I am Marvin Kell, NBC News.
I need my cough medicine.
Introducing new contact cough capsules.
A cough capsule?
Seems it's an idea some people have a hard time getting used to.
Contact cough capsules?
It's hard to believe that all the power of liquid cough medicines is concentrated in that one little capsule. So concentrated, it's all you need to relieve your cough for hours. New contact cough capsules, the first real improvement since the spoon.
Look who's discovered Sanka ground coffee. Ground coffee lover Mike Johnson.
Tastes great.
Ground coffee lover Virginia Buckland.
That's good.
Enjoy Sanka brand decaffeinated coffee, ground roasted, for a rich, fresh brewed, delicious cup of coffee. So take it from real ground coffee lovers like John Russ Kelly.
That's good.
For fresh brewed flavor, discover Sanka ground coffee for yourself.
Next Wednesday,
Let's party!
it's the premiere of Night Court,
At most, I was expecting charades.
where justice is always a toss-up.
One more flip. Heads, we send her up the river. Tails, you take her.
And Law and Order stands for craziness in the courtroom.
Lala.
Night Court, next Wednesday. Have a seat.
I'm Connie Chung. Tomorrow morning on Today, actors Richard Dreyfuss and John Lithgow, and singer Paul Simon, plus the biggest news stories of 1983. Tomorrow on Today.
NBC News produced this program and is responsible for its content.
On First Camera, the IRA wants this man dead. He's a radical Irish hero who turned his back on their terrorism. Is he a traitor or a man of peace? Sunday.
Fraud, Utah's biggest crime problem. Find out why Mormons have been con artists' prime targets. Go where the news is. NBC Nightly News with Tom Brokaw tomorrow.
Coming up on the scene at 10, it's another night of extremely hazardous driving because of icy streets. A state government study could mean a new pay plan and fewer jobs in Tennessee government. A report on the deadly Beirut bombing 2 months ago questions the reasoning for U.S. Marines to be in Lebanon. A judge has ordered Eastern Airlines to give a transsexual pilot her job back. And we have a report on giving a disfigured model and actress a new face.
These stories and more news coming up next on the Scene at 10.
It's a saving showdown. It's a clock stopper.